Hi everyone, in this video I'll show you how to make a model house. So this is what it will look like. I'll show you how to make the door, windows, siding, and shingles for the roof. And the house in general. So to start, make a sketch of what the house will look like. Start with the shape of the house. And the roof. And add in the door, windows, and other features. You may want to draw the back of the house too. So I got my supplies, and then cut out pieces of cardboard, and tape them together with some clear tape. Then I mixed some paper mache together using flour and water. And ended up needing more flour. When you dip paper into the mixture, you should be picking up the flour and the water. If it's too clear, you may need to add more flour. And if it's too thick, you'll have to add more water. So stir it so that you get all the clumps of flour mixed into the water. And I'm just using a plastic spoon so I can throw away later. Now I'm dipping paper strips into the water. Well, paper mache. And then placing them against my house and pressing them down so they'll stick. If they don't stick, your paper mache might need to be checked. Or you may need to dip the strips in longer because they need to absorb the paper mache a little bit. So just fold it around the house and tear it, and anything else you need to do to get the right size strips. And cover it so that you don't see any of the cardboard, and then add some more layers to strengthen the house. Make sure you cover the corners and the roof and the sides. The bottom is optional if no one's going to see it, so you should really worry about the sides and the roof. So I let that dry overnight, and now I'm measuring the side so I can make strips for my siding. So I measured in inches, and I'm going to make it slightly longer than it has to be. I'm making it a dot 2 inches from the edge of my paper, and then making another dot so I can make a straight line. You could also measure in centimeters if you wanted to. And now I'm just connecting those little lines to make one big line. Now my strips are going to be 1/2 inch thick. If you're using centimeters, I'd go for 1 centimeter. Any smaller and your strips will be hard to deal with. The 2-inch length depends on the size of your house, but the thickness is really just the average thickness of a strip. So now I'm making a second one, and then I'll cut them out. And then connect those dots to make a line. And I've got 2 strips once I cut them out. By the way, I'm using white construction paper to make the strips. Now I have it on my table so I can see the red lines. And I'm going to make a line that's going to divide them in half. So 1/4 of an inch in or 1/2 a centimeter. Those aren't equal measurements, but they're about the same size. Last time I made a house I used centimeters and it worked. So I'm just making a line dividing this one in half. And then I'll take my glue stick and add glue to the side where the lines are. The reason I'm using a glue stick is because it'll dry faster. Hot glue would be too dangerous because I'm using my fingers to place them on the house. And liquid glue would be really messy and take longer to dry, probably overnight. So this just makes it faster using a glue stick. So now I'm just going to place it on the side of my house, starting at the bottom, and I'll work my way up, adding the strips. So now I'll put glue on the second strip, again on the side that has the lines. And the lines both show up for a little bit, but you'll see what I'll do. So now I'm going to overlap it so that it's like halfway down the bottom edge of the second strip should line up with that red line in the center of the first one. Now just add more strips the same way where they're overlapping and work my way up until I get to the top of that side. I just want to add the siding to the side of the house and not the roof. So I'll cut out more strips, glue them on, overlap them, and press them on. And they will hang over the side. I'll show you what I do with that later. Right now I'm just going to add more strips till I cover that whole side. So now I'm adding glue to that, near the edge of that, and putting plenty of glue. And then the extra part of my strips, I'm just folding over the edge and gluing them down so that they cover the edge of my house. And then because of the shape of the roof, I had to trim the top strip because it wasn't folding over and staying there. That's the only side where that occurred. And if they pop up again, you may need to add more glue underneath. So now I'm going to measure the side of my house so I can add strips to this side. And let's see, it is a little less than 5 inches long, so I'll just go with 5 inches. And again, you could measure in centimeters if you wanted. So 5 inches from the edge of my paper, I'll make a little dot. And then do that again, so I have 2 dots, 5 inches away from the edge of my paper. And then I'll connect them. And these strips will be half a centimeter thick, well no, half an inch thick or 1 centimeter thick. Depending on if you're using inches or centimeters. Half an inch or 1 centimeter. Now I'm making a second strip, and I put my 0 mark on the edge of that first strip. So I have 2 strips, and same as before, I have it down so I can see the lines, the red lines, and I'll divide the strip in half. So 1/4 of an inch from the edge, I'll make a dot, and then make a line going all the way down. And I'll do it to the other strip, just dividing it in half with a line. There. Now I can add glue. By the way, make sure you have a paper or something on your desk where you're gluing, because I don't want to get the glue stick on the wood. So I'm just like putting it on top of the extra construction paper while I glue it. And then I'll place the strip against the bottom of the house and work my way up like I did on the other side. When I place the strips on, it's a little more to the left than the edge of the house is. So I just overlap the second strip so that the bottom edge of the second strip is lined up with that middle line of the first one, which does show through a tiny bit. So I'm done that side, and what I do is I add glue like that, and then I fold over the extra part of the strip, just like that. So now for the last edge, what I'm doing is I'm pulling up the siding from the first edge I did, adding glue against where the paper mache is. Make sure you get plenty of glue in there so that it doesn't pop up again. And then I'm going to fold over the strips on the left, add glue on top of those, and just place down the strips from that first side again. And then the siding sort of looks seamless. Well, not really, but you don't know what side I started on if you were looking at the house. And it covers the edges of the house that way too. So I have all the sides done, and I'll start working on the shingles. So I'll measure the roof, which is usually slightly bigger than the side of the house, but I'm still going to go with 5 inches. And I'm just using black construction paper for that. And using a red pen really helps when you're using dark colored paper, especially black paper, because if I was using a black or blue pen, it wouldn't probably show up. Neither would pencil, and I'm not erasing the lines anyway, so I'm using a red pen. So 5 inches from the edge of the paper, I'm making a dot, and I make 2 of those dots. And then I connect it to make a line. And for the siding, I'm making strips just like I did. For the shingles, I'm making just like I did for the siding. It's the same process where I have it half an inch wide, and the other dimension depends on the size of my house. So I'll just connect that line. And then I'll make a second strip, lining up my 0 color ruler with the edge of the first strip, making it half an inch thick, making my line, and then I'll cut those out. I made 3 strips to start with, and the size of my house requires 6 strips in all. But the number of strips will really depend on the size of your house. So just like with the siding, I'm dividing the shingle strips in half with a line that is 4 centimeters from the edge, which would be half of the house. So for the first strip, I am just adding glue to the side with the lines again, using the glue stick still. starting at the bottom of the roof, and it will hang over a little bit if I didn't make my roof straight, which in my case happened, which is alright. It's better to have it hanging over a little bit, which makes your roof appear straight, than have some of the paper mache showing if it's too high. So, to make it into shingles instead of siding, what I'm going to do is place my ruler against that middle line, and then every half a centimeter in from the edge, well, starting at half a centimeter from the edge, I'm making a line, and then another little line next to it that only is like half the length of it, like that. And then a half a centimeter from that, I'd make 2 lines again. And then half a centimeter from that, I make 2 lines. And just keep doing that all the way down the strip. Half a centimeter, 2 lines. Half a centimeter, 2 lines. Centimeter? I keep saying centimeter? I mean inches. Sorry. If it was centimeters, I'd be going for 1 centimeter. But I am using inches, so half an inch. So then I'm just taking my scissors and cutting halfway up the strip on those 2 little lines, just like that. And then turning my scissors the other way and cutting a little gap in the strip. So cut on the 2 little lines, turn my scissors the other way, and just cut that little piece off. And I let it fall to my table, and then I'll clean up those little pieces later. So I'll cut on all those little lines, just cut on the 2 little lines, turn my scissors, cut it off, do that all the way down the strip. And I'm only cutting halfway up the strip. I want to cut my strip up into smaller pieces. I'm just cutting little gaps in it, going halfway up. And that's where that middle line really comes in handy. Now I'm almost done. I have 2 more. So I'm cutting on those 2 little lines. And if it's not exactly on the line where you cut it, it's alright. It just has to be keeping the gap small. You don't want it to have a huge gap. But they don't all have to be uniform either, unless that's what you're going for. It still looks good if they're not all uniform. So this one I add glue to, and I'm overlapping it with that first strip without like pulling it higher or anything. It's just totally overlapping with it, like that. And I glued it on so I can't see the lines. And then I'll take my next strip, which I'm not gluing on yet, I'm just holding it so that I can see the line, and placing it against the house. Not gluing it yet. Taking my red pen, and in the middle of 2 gaps, or in this case the edge of the strip, I'm making a little line on the top half and then another little line, just like I did before, and make sure it's on the top half. Otherwise, when you flip it over, it won't get the same effect as it will if you do it on the top half. So you're just doing it in the middle, almost if you were drawing bricks, you'd kind of do the same thing, where each layer has like a line in the middle of 2 other lines like that. And then I'm taking my scissors again and just cutting on those 2 little lines and making another row of shingles. And I'll just cut it off. Turn my scissors, cut it. So I add glue to this next strip, and I'm just going to line it up. Even though the roof is a trapezoid, I'm going to glue it on as if the roof's a rectangle, and then I am going to cut it off later. And I'm just working my way up until I get to the top of edge of that side of the roof. And when you glue it on, you don't want to see like the paper mache in between those gaps, and make sure if that happens, just pull it down a little more and make sure you flatten it all out. So now I'm taking my scissors and cutting off that extra part of the shingles. And I find if I tried to fold it over because of the gaps, it just like that whole piece will rip. So if I cut it, it won't rip. Even though with the siding, it will fold over without ripping. So I'll just cut it off, and remember, less is more. Make sure you don't cut too much off and then regret it. Just cut little slivers of it off, and you can always go back and cut more, which is what I ended up doing. Just going back and cutting a tiny bit more off. Now I did all 4 sides of the roof. And what I did is I added strips on the sides of them, which I probably should have done before I added the shingles, but I didn't think I was going to, like, I had the idea after I put the shingles on. And I also tried to do this, which is forget to fold it first, which you should do before you put the glue on, otherwise you get glue all over your fingers, so fold it first, then glue. And then I tried to put it on top of the shingles, which I decided did not look good, so I pulled it back off after I did all this straightening out, and yeah, I ended up pulling it right back off. And decided to look better under the shingles, so I probably should have put it on before the shingles. But I didn't think of that. So, if you're watching this and you make the house, remember, put this piece on first and watch my entire video so you know what to do. Now I'm making the door. Out of a black rectangle of construction paper and a red rectangle of construction paper. And the red rectangle is slightly smaller than the black one. So I'm adding glue to the red one, lining up the bottom edges, and centering it in the red piece with the black piece and the rest of it. And straightening out, smoothing it down. And then I'll add glue to the back of the door so I can attach it to the house. This is almost done. As soon as I add the windows after this. So I'm just gonna center it on the front of my house, like also to the side, or try other stuff, but I decided to do it in the middle and make it look like a cottage. So now for the windows, I made a square of black construction paper, well, cut it out, and then I cut out a square of aluminum foil, of all things, and glued it on, and the aluminum foil is slightly smaller than the rectangle. The reason I decided to use aluminum foil is because I wanted something reflective but not transparent. And aluminum foil just really worked well. It was like a house where you can't see in through the windows, but they still shine. And that's what the house looked like, which you already knew from the beginning of the video. But here it is. Oh yeah, and I added a strip of black construction paper to the top of the roof, so that you can see the paper mache up there. Hey, anyone wanna let me in? Nah, it's a tiny model house. Yeah, this will be great if you're making a diorama or just a model house. And look at how the aluminum foil just like shines and stuff, and the shingles and the siding just give it more texture than if you were just making the house and leaving it with paper mache. It takes a little time to do this, but it's actually pretty easy. And there's the house. Thanks for watching.